In a significant diplomatic maneuver, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has arrived in Washington to engage in crucial discussions with President Donald Trump regarding the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. With tensions escalating and the potential for renewed Russian aggression looming large, Starmer is advocating for a robust U.S. commitment to provide security guarantees to deter Vladimir Putin from launching further offensives post-peace deal. Starmer's visit coincides with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's planned signing of a minerals deal with the U.S., which is expected to solidify economic ties but raises concerns over security assurances. "We will need a U.S. backstop of some sort," Starmer emphasized, expressing apprehension that without solid guarantees a ceasefire might only serve to embolden Russian ambitions. Trump, however, has indicated a reluctance to extend extensive security guarantees, suggesting instead that Europe should shoulder the responsibility of Ukraine's defense. "I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that," Trump stated, presenting a significant hurdle for Starmer's agenda. The backdrop of these negotiations is a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape. Recent discussions between Russian and U.S. diplomats in Istanbul have marked a notable shift in Washington's foreign policy, moving away from the previous administration's isolation strategy towards a more conciliatory approach. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has noted that initial communications with Trump's administration provide grounds for optimism, albeit with the caveat that some Western elements might seek to undermine this dialogue. In a parallel development, Zelensky's visit to Washington aims to not only finalize the minerals deal, an arrangement through which the U.S. will gain access to Ukraine's rare earth resources, but also to reaffirm Ukraine's position in any future peace negotiations. Despite the economic concessions, Zelensky has cautioned that security guarantees remain a crucial aspect yet to be finalized. "A deal with the U.S. will not be enough to end the war," he remarked, underscoring the need for a comprehensive security framework. The implications of these discussions extend beyond mere negotiations. Ukraine's consul in Scotland, Andriy Madzionovsky, has articulated the urgency for Ukraine to be a central figure in any talks regarding its future, emphasizing that Western unity is vital for a decisive final push on the enemy. He stated, "We require not only peace but a just peace," reflecting a consensus among Ukrainian officials that any settlement must address the root causes of the conflict and ensure the country's sovereignty. As the situation on the ground remains volatile, Ukrainian forces continue to face intense assaults, particularly in the Donetsk region, where Russia has escalated its military operations. Ukrainian military chief Oleksandr Syrsky reported a series of offensive actions by Russian troops attempting to breach defenses and capture key settlements. The strategic significance of these areas is heightened by their resource-rich geology, which includes substantial deposits of lithium and other critical minerals. Internationally, France has also expressed interest in Ukraine's mineral resources, with Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu stating that negotiations are underway to secure access for French defense industries. This illustrates a broader trend among European nations to engage actively in Ukraine's economic and security landscape, as they seek to fortify their own defenses against the specter of Russian aggression. The upcoming meetings between Starmer and Trump, along with Zelensky's presence in the U.S., are poised to shape the next phase of international involvement in Ukraine. The outcomes of these discussions will not only influence the immediate military and economic strategies of Ukraine and its allies, but will also set the tone for future diplomatic relations between the U.S., Europe, and Russia. As the global community watches closely, the stakes continue to rise. The potential for a new agreement hinges on the ability of leaders to navigate complex diplomatic waters while addressing the urgent needs of Ukraine. This week represents a pivotal moment in the ongoing saga, with a clear call for unity and action echoing from Kiev to Washington. Marking a critical juncture in the fight for Ukraine's sovereignty and stability. In a notable shift in warfare tactics, Russian infantry units have begun employing a new strategy that integrates first-person view FPV drones into their assault operations, a move that underlines the evolving landscape of modern combat. As the conflict in Ukraine drags on into its third year, the Russian military is adapting to the challenges posed by heavily fortified Ukrainian defenses, and this innovative approach could change the dynamics on the battlefield. Historically, Russian assaults have relied heavily on dismounted infantry, a tactic that has resulted in significant casualties for minimal territorial gains. However, recent reports indicate that Russian troops are now bringing FPV drones into the front line, allowing operators to engage enemy positions with greater speed and precision. This tactic allows the drone operators who stay behind to engage targets much faster. Notes a military blogger known as Unfair Advantage, highlighting the effectiveness of using drones as a form of mobile artillery. According to a report by the UK defence think tank RUSI, the evolving assault patterns involve small teams of infantry being transported as close as possible to Ukrainian positions before launching coordinated attacks. These assaults typically involve a series of small aggressive moves designed to overwhelm defenders through sheer numbers, with one Ukrainian brigade reporting an average of 27 attacks per day along certain sectors. Supporting these ground offensives are glide bombs, artillery, and now FPVs, which together create a multi-layered assault strategy. FPV drones, which have traditionally been used for long-range strikes, are now being launched from positions much closer to the enemy. This tactic minimizes the time it takes for the drones to reach their targets, effectively turning them into a rapid-fire weapon against enemy defenses. Assault infantry moving to the initial position to carry out an attack lays out on the ground their FPV drones and turns them on, explains Unfair Advantage. This allows the drone takeoff sites to be brought closer to the enemy's position, which reduces their flight time. The logistical aspect of this tactic is noteworthy. Small assault units can carry multiple FPVs alongside their conventional gear, thereby enhancing their firepower significantly. The operator remains safely behind the lines, relying on infantry to deploy drones when needed. This method can potentially increase the effectiveness of assaults, especially in scenarios where traditional artillery support is lacking. This new tactic is a response to the extensive use of drones by Ukrainian forces, which have typically favored defensive operations. The ability for Russian troops to carry drones into combat could shift some of the advantages back to the attackers. However, as the war continues, the overall effectiveness of this strategy will depend on how well Russian forces can integrate this drone warfare into their broader operational framework. The implications of this tactical evolution are considerable. As both sides continue to adapt, the battle for control in Ukraine may increasingly hinge on technological innovations and the ability to utilize them effectively in combat scenarios. The integration of FPV drones into infantry assaults could herald a new phase in this conflict, where rapid strikes and precision engagements become the norm rather than the exception. As the situation develops, observers will be keenly watching how these tactics influence the ongoing military engagements and the overall trajectory of the war. In a pivotal moment for international relations and security, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is in Washington, D.C., urging President Donald Trump to extend crucial security guarantees to Ukraine. This visit comes as concerns grow over the potential for renewed aggression from Russian President Vladimir Putin following any peace deal. Starmer's discussions emphasized the need for a backstop from the United States aimed at deterring further Russian incursions into Ukrainian territory. Starmer's visit aligns with the backdrop of Ukraine's own efforts to secure a deal with the U.S. related to rare earth minerals, a critical component for modern technology and defense industries. President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to sign this agreement during his upcoming visit. But he has cautioned that a mere economic arrangement will not suffice to ensure long-term peace. A deal with the U.S. will not be enough to end the war, he stated, underscoring the necessity of concrete security assurances. Trump's response, however, has been less than encouraging for Kyiv. In recent statements, he indicated a reluctance to provide extensive security guarantees, suggesting that Europe should take the lead in this area. "I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much, we're going to have Europe do that," he remarked, complicating Starmer's efforts to solidify a united front against Russian aggression. This hesitation comes despite Trump acknowledging that the U.S. stands to gain financially from the minerals deal, emphasizing a transactional approach to foreign policy that has characterized his administration. The stakes are particularly high as Russian forces continue to exert pressure on the Ukrainian front lines, particularly in the eastern Donetsk region where significant clashes have been reported. Ukraine's Army Chief Oleksandr Syrsky addressed the escalating situation, indicating that Russian forces are intensifying their assaults with the aim of breaking through Ukrainian defenses. Analysts have noted that this strategic area is not only vital for its geographical significance but also for its rich deposits of lithium and rare earth minerals, which are increasingly central to geopolitical dynamics. In the realm of diplomacy, discussions between U.S. and Russian officials in Istanbul have been aimed at normalizing relations and exploring pathways to end the war. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov commented on the potential for cooperation, noting that initial contacts with Trump's administration have sparked hope for dialogue. Nevertheless, the complexities of these talks are compounded by stark disagreements over security arrangements and the future of Ukraine's territorial integrity. Meanwhile, back in Ukraine, the political landscape is shifting as pro-Russian factions are attempting to regain influence amid the chaos of war. Former members of the banned opposition Platform for Life Party are leveraging social media to challenge Zelensky's leadership, echoing sentiments that align with Russian narratives. These developments could pose further challenges to Ukraine's unity at a time when solidarity is essential for resisting Russian aggression. As the situation unfolds, the international community watches closely. The potential for renewed Russian offensives looms large, and the effectiveness of US and UK diplomatic efforts in providing necessary security guarantees will be critical. Analysts suggest that without a strong commitment from the West, Ukraine's prospects for a just peace remain uncertain, leaving the nation vulnerable to the whims of Putin's ambitions. In conclusion, as Starmer and Zelensky engage with U.S. leadership, the outcome of these discussions could significantly influence not only the fate of Ukraine but also the broader geopolitical landscape. With the specter of renewed conflict hanging overhead, the importance of decisive action and unwavering support from allies has never been more pronounced. The coming days will reveal whether the dialogue can translate into tangible security guarantees that can deter future aggression and pave the way for a lasting resolution to the ongoing conflict. In a significant development for U.S.-Ukraine relations, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet with President Donald Trump on Friday to finalize a landmark minerals deal. This agreement aims to solidify U.S. access to critical raw materials from Ukraine, a resource-rich country embroiled in a protracted conflict with Russia. The backdrop of this meeting underscores the complexities of international diplomacy, economic interests, and security assurances, especially as Ukraine seeks to navigate its precarious position in the ongoing war. During a video address on Wednesday, Zelensky emphasized the importance of U.S. support, stating, "Strength is needed on the path to peace." He reiterated that any comprehensive agreement must come with guarantees of peace and security. However, the current U.S. administration appears hesitant to extend robust security guarantees, complicating Ukraine's position as it continues to fend off a full-scale Russian invasion that has persisted for 3 years. Trump characterized the impending agreement as a very big deal, suggesting it would allow the U.S. to recoup funds previously allocated to Ukraine's defense. He remarked, "We've been able to make a deal where we're going to get our money back, and we're going to get a lot of money in the future," framing the minerals deal as a mechanism for U.S. taxpayers to benefit from their investment in Ukraine. The minerals in question include rare earth elements vital to various industries, including defense and technology. As discussions progress, Zelensky has indicated that the framework of the agreement is nearing completion, but critical details remain unresolved, particularly concerning what security assurances the U.S. might offer in return for access to these resources. In his statements, he has made it clear that, without future security guarantees, we will not have a real ceasefire. From Trump's perspective, the minerals deal is also an opportunity to shift the burden of security commitments onto European allies. He stated, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that. This stance raises concerns in Ukraine, where leaders perceive U.S. military aid as essential for their survival against Russian aggression. Zelensky's reluctance to accept previous terms, which he described as burdensome, reflects a broader apprehension about the implications of any deal that lacks sufficient security backing. The reactions to the proposed deal have been mixed among Ukrainians. Activists and civic leaders have expressed concerns that Trump's approach may undermine democratic values and sovereignty. Annabella Marina, a civic activist, articulated her frustration, stating, "What Trump is doing is against the principles of democracy and freedom." Such sentiments underscore the tension between the urgency of securing aid and the necessity of preserving national dignity and autonomy. Despite these concerns, Zelensky remains optimistic about the negotiations. He has indicated that the latest drafts of the deal show improvement over earlier proposals, which he described as neo-colonial impositions. According to Alexander Kryev, director of the North America program at the Ukrainian PRISM Foreign Policy Council, the current negotiations offer investment opportunities for Ukraine that could aid in the country's recovery. As the meeting in Washington approaches, European leaders have also been actively seeking to reinforce U.S. support for Ukraine, with French President Emmanuel Macron and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer both visiting the White House this week. The geopolitical landscape is shifting, and the outcomes of these discussions could have profound implications for Ukraine's future as well as for U.S. relations with its European allies. In conclusion, the upcoming meeting between Zelensky and Trump represents a pivotal moment not just for Ukraine but also for the broader international community navigating the complexities of security and economic cooperation during a time of conflict. As both leaders prepare to engage in negotiations, the potential for a meaningful agreement hinges on finding a balance between resource access and the security assurances that Ukraine desperately seeks. This dynamic will likely influence the course of U.S.-Ukraine relations and the ongoing conflict with Russia as 2025 unfolds.